It's almost fall here, and so I thought it would be fun to paint a pumpkin. I'm also gonna do a separate video to paint a couple gourds, which I think could be really fun. I'll show you what I mean. I've been trying some different pumpkins and different gourds, different views. Here's a couple more with some warts and some stripes and different colors. So today we're gonna do a pumpkin, and I think we'll just do one like this with a straight on view. All you need are a pencil, watercolor paper, or some kind of a thick paper, some paints, and today we'll really just be using red and yellow, maybe a little bit of black and a little bit of green. I'm using a size 2 brush because it's my favorite. You could use a bigger brush if you want, or something smaller. I like to paint kind of small. If you're gonna do a big pumpkin, then you'll want a bigger brush, like maybe a size 10 or a size 6. 6 is what came with my Praying watercolor sets, and it's pretty good for filling in. So let's start. The pumpkin we're gonna do today is kind of an oval. I'm gonna draw it dark, but when you are painting it, try and draw it pretty light so that you can erase some extra pencil lines. I'm just gonna do an oval shape like that. And I'm gonna make a little spot in the middle here where the stem is. And then we'll have the stem curve to the left. It's a little bit bigger at the bottom, but really the stem is kind of the same thickness all the way along. The vine gets shorter where it's attached, and the vine gets thinner, but the stem is pretty regular. So I'll erase my pencil where it crossed over that line. And now it's time to add the kind of like the bone structure of the pumpkin, the ribbing. Starting in the front, I'm just gonna do some curve shapes. They all come and end down towards the bottom, below the stem. They're all gonna aim that direction. So on the left side of the stem, they curve to the left and come down towards the bottom. And we'll do one back there. And there's probably one behind this stem that we can't see. And then starting on the right side of the stem, they all head towards the right. And they're not always evenly spaced, so don't worry about making them the same distance apart. I'm gonna do another one in the front here. Okay, and now we're gonna go along at the bottom of the pumpkin and the top and make the outline. So they kind of have this little bubble shape between the rib, where the ribbings end. So come down and then back up. Let's see, this one comes down probably just right there to the where that rib ends. Okay, and then let's see, we have this one here, comes down to here. And then that one can come in. Okay, and same along the top. So this edge now will make kind of a bubble shape that comes up and down to where the ribbing is, and then this can come up and around. And then where the stem meets, we'll do the same thing. It almost makes a star shape. If we were looking straight down at the stem, it almost makes a star shape where the green part attaches. I'm drawing it pretty dark. I hope you can see that. Okay, now it's time to start. We're gonna paint the whole pumpkin yellow. Although I'll draw some bubble shapes here. I'm gonna leave some of these places pretty white, and I'm gonna draw it with pencil so that I remember and so that you can really see. But I would say this you could just paint and choose a few places to leave white. So I'm not going to paint yellow inside there. I'm almost out of yellow in my palette over here, so I've put a little extra from a tube over here, and that's what I'm going to use today. I'm going to water it down kind of a lot, and now just the whole pumpkin is going to be yellow, except for the stem. I'm going to use a little bigger brush for this. I'm trying to not have a lot of big puddles of paint on here, which is a little tricky when you're keeping your paints really wet. I added a lot of water to make this very light, but I don't want big puddles, and that's mostly because I want this to dry pretty fast so I can move on. If we have big puddles, then it takes a while in between layers, in between adding color, and I don't have the patience for that all the time. I just want to make this pumpkin right now and move on. So if it gets real puddly in places, you could use a sponge to take some of the paint back off, because this first layer is supposed to be a pretty light yellow. This is going to be our lightest color, except for where we're leaving it white. Okay, so while that's drying just a little bit, let's make kind of a light orange color. My palette has two oranges, this lighter orange and this darker one. And then it also has kind of an orangey red, my paint tray. The light orange is good, but I want to mix it with a little bit of yellow to start to blend it in. So I have this right here. I'll just get it wet again. It's kind of a darker orange, so I'm going to water it down and then just add some yellow to it. There. So now it's pretty yellow, so now I'm going to add some more of that light orange. That's pretty good. So this is going to go almost everywhere, just leaving a little bit of that yellow showing. The dark spots of this pumpkin are going to be the back and the bottom, and a little bit of this side. So this side will stay lighter, especially where this light is shining on. So this color, I'm just going to start to put coming down, and all my brush strokes will follow the shape of the pumpkin. Okay, now it's time for a darker orange. So I'm going to use that same light orange, add a little bit here. And then I'm going to add a little bit of red to it. I have a reddish orange and kind of a bright cherry red. I'm going to start with the reddish orange. See what color that makes. Okay, so this now is going to go everywhere that I want it to be dark. So all along these rib lines are going to be darker. The bottom is darker and the back is darker. I'm going to start at the bottom, and instead of brushing, I'm just setting the paint on, going up the rib a little bit and along the bottom edge. And same for the top. It's still pretty wet, I can tell, so this might have to slow down a little. Because look how much it's blending. It's not really showing up as being dark the way I want it to right there. It's just turning into a big blurry mush. But it is looking like a pumpkin, so that's fun. I'm gonna use a little bit of Kleenex and just take a little bit of the puddle off of there. It's also gonna take the paint off, but that's okay. This is gonna be darker up here. And now I'll try again with that dark color. Okay, I'm gonna mix the next color now, and that will be more red, more dark. So using those same colors again, I'm gonna use this darker reddish orange. And I'm gonna try not to add much water to it because this is already so wet. And I'm gonna put just the tiniest bit of brown into it. Okay, back to the bottom now and up the ribbing. If you want this to be less blurry, you just have to wait a little bit longer between adding colors. I like it to blur, but I also like a little definition, so, but I'm also not super patient about it. Okay, now for an even darker layer. Let me blend this a little actually. So I have a little bit of that color left. I'm gonna get the darker red. And I'm gonna put a little tiny bit of black in it, actually, like the tiniest bit. And then a little bit of brown. I want it to look pretty brown, actually. with just kind of the hint of red, orange. Okay, so this is going at the bottom too, but just in a few places. And then just a little bit back here. I think I'm going to put just a little bit more orange on in this. I want to cover up just a little bit more of this yellow. The transition is kind of harsh between that dark red and the yellow. Now, if you didn't outline your white spots as much as I did, then right now would be a good time to take a little bit of water. I'm gonna do it, but my pencil lines will still be there. Take a little bit of water and just go around this edge to soften it a little bit so that you still have white and light in the middle, but it's not as an abrupt an edge. Just soften those edges. Okay, let's do the stem. I want kind of a light green to start. I have something here that I'll work with. So I would do, depending on what paints you have, you could use, start with a light green and add a little bit of yellow, or you could start with a darker green and add a lot of yellow. And we don't need much. It's just the wash for the the lightest color of the stem. Just fill it in, and if you have a lot of wet spots around it, just be careful not to touch into those, or you'll end up with a stem that has a lot of red and orange in it. Okay, now a darker green. Let's use that same color and add back in some darker, like a more emerald green, and a little bit of brown. That could be a lot of brown. I'm gonna put a little more green in it. So down here is gonna be the darkest, where there's a shadow, and then there will be some shadows along the stem because they have kind of almost like stripes sometimes. If a pumpkin's ready to be picked, that stem is gonna be brown. So I'm drawing it green for contrasting because I think it'll be more interesting, but it really should be brown in this situation. Okay, now I'm gonna add a little bit of black to it. I tend to add too much black, so I'm trying to be careful. I'm gonna put a little bit of this down here. Okay, and now a touch more black. Just trying to get it a couple shades darker. See if I can drop just a little bit down here. Okay, and now for the fun shadow, where you just take water. I'm gonna use a little bigger brush. Just water, and swipe from the left to the right by pushing on your brush. Kind of gives this pumpkin a spot to sit. So it's not floating. Okay, so if I was gonna keep working on this, I would come back and add a little more dark after this shadow is dry, and kind of redefine those ribs at the bottom. And I would probably add a little more dark to redefine up here as well, like just a little more black. But I would do it before the paint is completely dry. And that's about it. I hope you have fun trying painting a pumpkin.